I would like to call this meeting to order. This is a regular session of the Boonton Township Board of Education held for the purpose of transacting appropriate board business in compliance with Chapter 231 laws of 1975. The notice of this meeting was advertised in the Morris County Daily Record. Copies of the agenda of this meeting were appropriately posted and made available to the public.
Mrs. Barnett.
Here.
Mr. Brandon.
Here.
Mrs. Cabana. Mr. Chen.
Here.
Mr. Eaton.
Here.
Mrs. Hermy.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. LeVar.
Here.
Mrs. McBride.
Here.
Also present, Dr. Angelo, Superintendent Principal. I see our student representative, Madison McBride. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Slightly out of order and go to the report of our student representative, Madison McBride.
Hi. Fall sports are well underway, with some of them coming to an end soon. The football team is undefeated with a record of 7-0, and senior night is this Friday against Caldwell at the Turf at 7 p.m. Also, congrats to head coach Fusco for getting his 100th career win on October 7th. Field hockey made it all the way to the final round in the Morris County tournament and played Chatham yesterday, but lost 1-0. Girls soccer, boys soccer, volleyball, field hockey, and cross country all have states soon, starting next week. All freshmen, sophomores, and juniors took the PSAT last Wednesday. In addition, AP exam registration is already open, and the deadline to register is November 7th. Clubs are in full swing with just about one club meeting per day, if not more. The academic team finished 11th in the Island Cup Quiz Bowl tournament. College representatives are still coming to the high school with meetings daily. This ends November 16th. The school year is going by fast, with the first marking period ending on November 4th. The high school also has no school because of the NJEA convention on November 11th and 12th. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. As always, if you have somewhere else you need to be, homework or other pending matters, I'll be offended if you go. Thank you very much for your report. And with that, we have two presentations this evening. The first presentation is the 2022 NJSLA results of Dr. Leah Lendes.
Can everyone hear me okay? This will keep her. So, welcome everybody. Good evening to everyone. So just let's get started. So I'm going to get to our first slide here. It's going to help us give some background. The state is not a stranger to state assessment. We've had state assessments in New Jersey for many years. They just keep changing. So between 2015 and 18, it was Park. Anybody in grades 3 through 8 at Rockaway Valley School has to participate in state assessments. In 2019, Park became NJSLA, and then the pandemic hits, right? So then we have no testing for 2020 or 21. Spring 22, we were also field tested, which added one additional day of LA. And again, a handful of students. We never really have a contingent of parents who are anti-test, or like in the very beginning, I think when computerized testing came about, there was always this fear that parents can opt out, what that looked like. Our families here have been very supportive. It's usually like Disney or COVID. That's what kind of kept the kid from taking the test. One of those two reasons. But otherwise, we had 251 students. And then I'm just writing at the very end there, it's important to note that NJ, GPA, and we don't have to worry about that, we don't have a high school, they also were implementing this as their first administration of a high school proficiency test. And they changed the cut scores, adjusted scores, and ended up throwing out the test. We had no change, no adjustment, no modification in our cut scores, and ours were the youngest learners. So I'd just like to offer some insight there to help you sort of understand a little bit about what state assessment is, just some perspective. I always love to talk a little bit about how we are the little engine that could, and in this case, maybe the little pug that could. But we have a smaller group of students taking the test. So I always like to mathematically kind of say, well, one student could be 3%, one student could be 5%, depending on the size of each grade level. So if you put a Great Dane next to that little guy, it'd look a lot easier for them to climb the steps. But making adjustments for a small school, right, it's one little step at a time sometimes. Our performance levels didn't change, like I said before, 1 through 5 in Park, it's 1 through 5 NJSLA, so they kept the same, the state did, when they moved from Park Consortium to their own NJSLA. But 750 is the cut score. And I was sort of hoping, and this is just between all of us in this room and everybody at home watching, that it would have been awesome if they would have adjusted, knowing that there was this. I mean, why did they adjust the high school scores? So they obviously knew something, but it didn't. 750 was it. Because if you took the level 3 students, you know, this might look very different. So I also have that same little caveat there at the bottom about the performance levels and the change to the numbers. So what does this all mean? What do we do to make things work here at the school? Well, our teachers have all the resources that they need to do the best that they can. We've been articulating, I'm jumping around here, articulating with Mountain Lakes now for a number of years. I've been very fortunate to have a good relationship with Summit Bangia, although now she's left. I do feel like we can, keep that relationship going, which is why we have 8th graders right now taking geometry. If you don't have students here in the building, you maybe would know or don't know, but our 8th graders were taking algebra here for a number of years, all 8th graders, which is also very different. And we make all of our, we had all of our students taking that. This year we have all of our students taking geometry, so we're in line with Briarcliff. Our EIS program is like our basic skills program. We make sure that's more data-driven. We purchase programs to help our teachers hone in on specific skills. Our mapping initiative, if you haven't checked it out, it's online. All of our curriculum mapping, scope and sequence has been reviewed and made sure that it's audited by teachers to make sure what they're teaching, when they're teaching it, how long it's being taught, all online. And then being able to kind of go back and like cross-check. I always think about getting a haircut. One side of your hair, you have to make sure it's matched to the other side if you're cutting your hair. So the idea is that we're always checking against the standards, making sure we're covering those things and how well. And of course, for accelerated learners, we do have a pathway to more advanced math at the high school. We still have that. So all those things have still been a very important factor in helping us. So the number of slides that we're going to go through is because we're grades 3 through 8. Some schools only have 3, 4, 5. So a lot shorter presentation. So you can look at this at your leisure tomorrow when it's uploaded. But again, what I want you to just make sure you see is slide after slide after slide is 18, 19, and 22. So in 18, it was called Park. In 19, it became NJSLA. And in 2022, that's 2 years later. So I know it looks like it's in order, but it's about 2 years in between. So as you look at this, the one other thing you want to remember is you're looking at levels 4 and 5. That's important. Those are the students that passed. But it's also important to look at levels 1, 2, and 3, especially 3. And why do I say especially 3? Well, the 3s are where they almost passed, right? And that's where we were kind of hoping maybe that cut score could have changed. So this was 3rd grade LA and 3rd grade math. We moved to 4th grade. And again, now we're looking at across the board, how did that group, last year's group, do? Like in this case, you're looking at 4s and 5s, you add them together, it's 66% passed 4th grade ELA. 4th grade math, you do the same thing. So you're all going to become experts by the time we get through all these slides, and you're going to get through all of these. Again, you can download this tomorrow and take a look at all of this. I'm not going to read from the slide, I never ever did in my career, to tell you just that's what you're looking at. You're looking at 4s and 5s, but then there's also important things, like maybe a level 1. Who is in that level 1? Our teachers know it. They're working with those students. Who's in level 3? Are they getting basic skills? Yes. We want to make sure we see what was it. There's also something really great too, that teachers are able to find out which question tripped up the students the most, what level of difficulty was it, and what standard did it hit. And then you go back and you think, all right, what did I do last year? How long did I stay on that topic? Which is why curriculum mapping is so important. 6th grade math, again, here you can say, wow, what happened here? I know. Right? It's a goose egg right there, you're all looking at it. I understand, but there's also profiles to grades. Some grades have more special ed students than others. Some have smaller numbers of students. Some were in basic skills, had a greater number of students that were in basic skills than other grade levels. Every grade level has a story, all right? And our teachers do know that story, and they know how to work with our students to get them to a better story. In this case, 7th grade ELA, like, wow, look at that. And again, you could look back. You could look back. I'm sure you want to, and historically take a look there. I'm not so worried about 4 years ago. I'm really looking at recovery and rebuilding. And it's like if you love football, I'm a Steelers fan, it's rebuilding. I mean, there are some moments where you're going to say, is there a trend? Yes, you can find all those trends. There are different groups of students. So, and there's also sometimes teacher changes, right? Or textbook changes, or other things. But in the end, remember too, guys, 2018, 2019, 2022, what did we say again? It's different tests. And so then there's a whole other piece to that as well. So we'll go through this, and then we'll look at 8th grade ALA, and you could say, okay, what a couple years ago, what would that look like? Those students did a little bit better, and we're level 5s, you're looking for people that exceeded expectations. And then this is algebra. And in algebra, again, this is the last time we're going to see this slide of algebra. Next year we'll have geometry. So, but there actually will be some students who do take algebra due to our advanced course that we're offering. So more important is this kind of slide, and this is where there's some historical perspective if you really want to go backwards in time. In this case, and I'm sorry that didn't get around maybe one very well, I can try to adjust that, I'm not sure if it's the Promethean board. But let's take a look here at this slide, and this is the one I would like to show you. 73% bottom right-hand corner. If you look at 73%, that's our 8th graders last year. They were freshmen right now in Mountain Lakes, or at Botech, or somewhere else. 73% of our students, the last time they took a state assessment, they were in 5th grade. So perspective, right? So last time they took an NJSLA test, or yes, they were 85% that passed, 73. So it looks like we lost about 10%. Okay. And then we can look at our 7th graders, 75% ELA passed. Last time they took it was, okay. Do I expect good things from them this year? So that's what you can look at to sort of do predictions, but gosh, if I was in the business of predictions, I don't know, I might not be here right now, right? So it's interesting how this all can play out. I mean, the last time, right, if you look at a 5th grader, if you went backwards now and said that, all right, they were 5th graders, and then the last time they took a test, if you look backwards, it was 81%. So that particular group has been sort of maybe steady. So you're looking at groups of students, the profile of the student, that's one thing to look at, or you're looking at who taught the course over time and what did that do. So there's 2 ways you can always look at the data. Look at the groups of students and make the prediction of what it will look like for them, or look at the teacher, look at the coursework, look at the curriculum, look at the resources that you use, and think about who's the strongest person for that course. So those are decisions that we make internally, and we continue to look at that. Math passing rates, I point to that blue 5th grade. This is the first time they ever took a state assessment. You know what I mean? So if you take a look at, they didn't take one in 2nd grade, right? It's only 3 through 8, right? Remember the first slide. So there you go. 67% of 5th graders passed the math. But if you look at this, and I said certain groups have certain profiles. It's a little lower. I know why. And we all know why. And our teachers understand that and are working towards that. That certain groups of students may have higher percentages of students who have different needs. And then again, you can look at, in 8th grade, it was 56% that passed algebra. The last time they took the test was in 5th grade, and it was 64%. So that's the way you can look at the data, but then you look at their 7th grade, last time I took it was, they were in 4th grade. And 4th grade is a little bit more challenging for math. We do know that. From 3rd to 4th. We've seen that. Teachers, just informally have told us that there is a little bit of a jump in what the standards expect from 3rd to 4th grade. And I know some parents in the room maybe agree, if they remember back to them. All right, so apples to pineapples, I love this slide, and I know that some people in education might have seen it. We have students with special needs, and we modify for them, and we help them, and we adjust things for them. But in the end, everybody's got to climb the tree. There? Doesn't really matter, right? Here we are. And this is what we have to do. So even with all of those types of differentiation tools that we use, in the end, we are asked to report out on the students that have the IEPs or 504s. And I'm not disaggregating it by grade level because it wouldn't be that many students in each grade level. So I take them all. There's 31 students that had an IEP or a 504 last year that took the NJSLA in the spring. And those are what the results show for that. And I know that you're all looking at exceeding expectations, and you're probably saying, gee, why did that happen? There's a reason why certain students have IEPs. And we work towards growth. Again, I feel like that's important to mention. So what does this all sort of mean? And as you're looking at all these numbers, you're going to go back home and look at them some more. And if you want, we can, crunch them any which way you want. Ultimately, a tsunami hit education. And earthquake, aftershocks, whatever you want to call it. The ultimate thing that changed the face of education happened. We told students that they can't be in school, right? And for half a day, and I know it's hard to think back, because trust me, it's been like a blur for a lot of us. We had half days. Our students went home, and sometimes got online, and sometimes didn't. And we would work with the parent, and we would try to get them to cooperate, and it was just getting harder and harder and harder as the emotional toll was taking on all of us. There's apathy in the classrooms. Students worried about getting sick. Teachers worried about getting sick. Attendance was interrupted a lot, up until last year. So imagine, we're told to have spring 2022 NJSLA, we're quarantining students. We're telling students to stay home. Teachers are staying home, and I'm supposed to do a test administration. So and these aren't excuses, this was the reality. I mean, I'm just letting everyone know that there's no substitution for real person learning. There's no substitution for anything in person. Staff attendance, student attendance, half days, modifications, and then the big thing was you had to look at your curriculum and adjust for lots of things. Time, what is most important, are those fun projects happening? We were telling kids not to sit near each other. They couldn't be in groups together. We couldn't have a kid come up for a small group with a teacher, some teachers more than others. This was all part of, am I gonna get sick? I walk through the building every day. I have a 90-year-old father at home. Am I gonna get sick today? That was my fear every day. So, and I'm just being personal at that. And of course there's test validity. Like I was saying, there's 3 different tests. It takes 3 years to norm a test. We haven't gotten there yet. So we need more data, and we need more momentum. You can't just keep interrupting, right? Change the test even though we've had consecutive years, and now we have the test, but then we didn't have the testing. So there's all those types of things that also come into play. And ultimately, what does all this mean? Our teachers have gotten this data already. They've analyzed it. They've looked at those evidence statements like I was mentioning. So important to them. They've also have looked at which students need support, which students they should target some more. They've also have the luxury now of Start Strong testing. So we have that data as well. We got that immediately. That was actually one of the most beneficial things, is that we were able to get that in real time. So teachers immediately, mid-September, and I made sure to do it earlier than other districts so that we can adjust. We can see what's going on. So I think that helped them more than this. But in the end, does it help us identify students that need some support? Who are those 745 kids? Who are those 749 kids? Right? That to me is so, so important. So how do we use this to inform our decision making? What do we need? What resources are still needed? We talk about that all the time. But I'm telling you, we've got a lot of resources. We just have to get into this mode to help us all use them now. And now we're hoping that we can be all full steam ahead. I always like to bring this up, and I know if you've seen my presentation over the years, not everything that matters can be measured. And I'm going to end with this slide. I know that some of you have this printout of my presentation, but it's not uncommon for me to kind of tinker with it last minute, so I apologize. I wanted to make sure that those copies were out there. But I found this, I belong to a couple of educational Facebook pages. This children's book author, Alexandra Penfold, writes on Twitter, "This weekend I sorted through some papers in my room, saved by my childhood," right? My mom saved. "The top one is my 4th grade self-evaluation, and if you can't see that, it says, writing. I love to write, and I hope to become an author someday." Author spelled wrong. And then the bottom is my 4th grade state assessment. And it says, "Student is minimally proficient in writing." And she's an awesome children's author, if you're interested in her. She writes books about SEL and stuff. But imagine if you listen to the test score. So it doesn't measure everything. It doesn't measure drive. It doesn't measure perseverance. It doesn't measure grit. It doesn't measure a student's effort, resilience, all those things. And passion. She cared enough. She wanted to become an author. Good for her. This is great. So does a test score define you? I would hope it doesn't. It's my last slide. So yeah, I understand that everybody likes to hang on to a number. It's kind of like your weight or something, right? Or your dress size, or maybe wants to identify you, but there's so much more than that. And we know that there is, and our teachers know that there is. And so we're moving full steam ahead to a recovery, is how we see it. So was there a decline? Yes. And across the state there was a decline. And across the country there was a decline. You can't change the face of education without there being a change, a real change. And it was what it was. So we're moving forward from that. So that concludes my presentation. Sean, you want to help do something, please?
Board want to ask Dr. Linda's any questions? Yeah. Is it okay if any board members decide if they have any questions?
Yeah, I could do my best. I
I
mean,
know
when it's data driven like this, I'm not
Yeah,
going to get back
if
to
it's
you.
something like that, just.
Sure, yeah.
Different time, yeah, but
Yeah.
is there anything that can be?
Sure.
That can be?
Thank you for the presentation, a lot of detail. I know it's not easy to get up there and present when the numbers have gone down, but all of us, especially those who have children, saw that the regression during COVID was real, so all good. My question is, a couple of years ago, I remember we increased the math time, and that had huge positive benefits, so I'm wondering, and really this is an open discussion for the board, what the interest is in trying to figure out a way to get even more math sections, and even if there's a cost to it, what that would be and how we could make that happen, because the past is the past, but looking forward,
What can we
I
make it?
think we all want to see it all go up, so that would be my question. What if maybe things are being done already, I'm not sure, but what can we do to get some more math sections?
Right, so currently grades 5 through 8 have 8 times a week of math, and I'd like to tout that it's more than what some other districts are doing in middle school. So it's not 5 times a week in grades 5 through 8, it's 8, and that happens in 2014, 15, somewhere back then. And we also had a change in some staffing. And I think that made a big difference in some of the approaches to how the courses were being taught. It's very hard, it's not very easy to try to change the schedule and add periods where there are no periods. You'd have to rob Peter to pay Paul in some respects. If you take something away from someone, you can then add another period of something, because you take another course away. I mean, adding another, you know what I mean, you have 39-minute periods, I mean, the day starts here, it ends here, it's what you do in the middle. I mean, there's reinforcement, that's for band and chorus.
Right,
Yeah.
I was just thinking, on that note, also the children that need support will get pulled out
Yes.
already for extra math
Yeah.
classes. So,
Once a week. Mhm.
right, so you're identifying.
You could even do twice a week. We've done some special cases where there's some severe situations that we feel like, if there's 2 EISs we can give them, and mom and dad are okay with that, or caregivers okay with that, we do that too. ELA and math have basic skills attached with it in grades 3 through 8. And in grades 1 and 2, it's like a fluid group that they work with students that may need help.
Yeah, I mean, so just to wrap it up, and then anyone else can go, but given our population, it really only takes like 3 students to bump those scores 10%,
Yes.
which would change the whole,
Absolutely.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't want to take anything away or not offer anything to any students, but if we can identify the small handful that
Yes.
will have the largest
Absolutely
impact,
right.
and figure out a way to get that content to them,
Yes, I agree with you.
then.
Because that is exactly it. So it's funny, like, I don't want to say we don't look at 1s and 2s, but yes, the 3s are the ones on the cusp that anybody in education would know. Those are the ones you maybe want to hone in on, and what happened, and what was it that was the deficiency. And then that teacher works with that student in an EIS session with iExcel or Measuring Up Live and other programs that we use that are digital platforms, and helps you hone in on specific skills like that. So that's the goal. That is the goal.
So when the teachers are able to look back at the data and really specify by question and by standard where kids were deficient, and then you look at those students who were on the cusp, 743, 745, 740, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's a difference of 1 or 2 questions that puts them over the top. And the reality is this: when I completed my dissertation, my study was on test scores. And it was all about factors that had nothing to do with teaching and learning that influenced test scores. But during the year or so that I studied the data, there was something that really struck me that was very interesting. Do you know that when it comes to standardized assessments, the standard error of measurement is plus or minus 7 points? So what does that mean in layman's terms? That means that plus or minus 7 points is a difference between a student who had a 745, that they really could have had a 752. But the state doesn't acknowledge that, because the state will say, well, it also could have been the flip side of that standard error. So the reality is, when you're looking at kids, and why are we in this profession? To help kids get over this hurdle, and you give kids the benefit of the doubt. But the state doesn't give kids the benefit of the doubt when it comes to cutoff scores. Now, that's obviously not unique to RBS, but it's meaningful for every district across the state, and every district everywhere. Remember that, plus or minus 7 points. so they don't get the benefit of the doubt. But because teachers have the data at their disposal, they are able to hone in on specific skills and specific standards where they go, geez, I noticed in my data set over here, the students from last year, if I had 45 students, 25 of them really struggled with this one standard. I guess I need to spend a bit more time honing in on that standard for this school year. So that's what they're doing right now, and they've gotten themselves professional learning communities, and they're always looking at data that way in department meetings and team meetings.
Thank you.
So piggybacking on that real quick, I see that, the scores for 2015 math, 2019, and I know it's a different test, right? But they improved. And you mentioned increased math time, right? More
Yes.
teachers. Those are two things. Is there anything else that we can learn from that? Because clearly there was an improvement along the lines we would take from that.
Are you looking at 8th grade?
Just looking at
In
all
general?
of them, it looks like in general it just kind of went up. But I
Yeah.
mean, some
There's-
give or
there's
take it
momentum.
went.
I feel like there's momentum,
Yeah.
right? When you're just like in this mode where you're just year to year, you're humming along and you're doing what you know is right, and students have not had a major interruption. That would be my theory. Again, I don't know how much I can back that up. It's a theory. But you can say that there could have been staffing changes anywhere there. There could have been some resources that were used differently.
I wonder if there's anything we can look back and apply, kind of go, hey, this worked.
Yes.
Can we do it again?
Yeah.
Other than what, John had mentioned.
Teachers are excited just to get back to normal. Teachers, there's a good energy in this building. They're excited to get back to normal. They want to just do what they do, put those projects back in there, do more of those small group, extra help. I mean, that definitely took a huge hit. You would never see kids in the building before or after school. Now it's great. Kids are here sitting at a table with their teacher and getting more instruction, more targeted instruction. So that was a huge thing that we were doing more of, but didn't do for those 2 years.
And I just want to add just a couple of other thoughts. Being as small as we are, understand that teachers take this very personally. Why?
Not just
Well,
teachers.
But when you look at 5th grade mathematics, 6th grade, 7th grade language arts, 8th grade, there's only one teacher, right? So everyone knows who that teacher is. So when they look at those scores, they take those things very personally. The challenge in any district is an understanding that when you are tested in language arts and math, overwhelmingly, those teachers feel that the burden is placed on them for performance, for the children's performance, for their performance, etc. And when we started the year this year and knew that we were back to normal, we said, folks, as Dr. Lendis and Mrs. Voorhees and I went around and met with the staff members in small groups, departmentally, as a team, etc., we said, the philosophy or the sentiment can't be that NJSLA language arts it only falls on the language arts teacher. That's their responsibility. No, it's also the responsibility in a very interdisciplinary way to have more writing, have more opportunities for short answer in social studies, in other content areas, so that it doesn't just rest with one discipline and those folks have the weight of the world on their shoulders. So, we've really looked at it and taken an approach to it, maybe in a different way than we have.
I was just thinking in that 2015 to 2018 time period where you might have seen a jump in math, that one of the attributes of that could have been, that's when we started doing Apex, right? Like where math was.
2016, yeah.
So in that time period, so
In
there was a lot of
2014,
energy
we
about
adopted
math.
Envision
Like, am I
Math.
gonna get into it? Like, I'm gonna focus on trying to get into Apex class. You know what I mean? There was that.
It shows, it's clear that
Envision Math
on
was adopted, I think in 13 or 14, and I think that also streamlines, like we went from Envision Math from K through 8, and that was huge. We're using the same terminology, the same kind of way of approach, like how you approach the math instructions, that helped. We've been with that. Now 8th grade obviously is not Envision algebra, but it was all streamlined and consistent. That could have maybe been a big difference as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
And if you have any other questions, just,
Thank you.
And at this time, we get to our next presentation is strategic planning with Charlene Peterson, our senior field representative from the Community School Boards Association. We're going to begin a strategic planning process in our district this coming school year, and Mrs. Peterson will
However,
Some take that
I guess
process.
we're debating whether I need the microphone here or not, I guess, so however we want it. Did you want me to have it or not? I'm fine unless you want me to have it.
Sound fine? Yeah, you sound fine.
Okay.
I can hear you, I think.
Okay, so I just, again, appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about strategic planning, and I think it's, kind of a coincidence, I guess, that it's following talking about your test scores and talking about student achievement, because really that's kind of what strategic planning is about. That's what we're all here for, and as much as we heard about the work that going on in the classroom, we have to acknowledge that it's the responsibility of all of us, of your community, that all of us have to take the perspective that every single child has to have the opportunity to do the best that they can, and recognize that school can't do it all by itself. In order to have your students have the best opportunity, we need to know what's important to everyone. So when the board considered this prospect of engaging in strategic planning, if we think about the fact that we now have more limited resources and we need to figure out how to best utilize them, we can help do that by looking out over a longer period of time. So when we talk about strategic planning, it's saying, let's get everyone's viewpoints and perspectives and put a plan or put a roadmap together that will help give us some structure or guidance over that period of time. And I always say, like, the board could have put a plan together, the administration could put a plan together, but it's not going to look like this plan that includes every single stakeholder. So I wanted to give you an idea tonight of what that could look like, because sometimes people even say, we've had other parents say to us, well, strategic planning, like that sounds like a business term, or sounds like something that I don't really know that I can participate in, or how can I help? I want people to understand that it's really just more about a conversation and talking about your school district, and we'll even have people tell me, like, a couple of years, once it's passed, saying, the plan is great, but really the best part of this whole thing was inviting everyone to come together to talk about your district. So just kind of want to take you through the steps of what this process is going to look like. We did this in Mountain Lakes about a year ago, so I know that I recognize some faces in here as being part of that process. So I'm excited to kind of keep that momentum flowing and kind of be able to, tie these types of visions together. So like I said, it is all about student achievement, and again, making sure that we're all working together for that same inspirational idea. Because it's important that we have a district-wide vision. So, I talked about the importance of limited resources, but again, allowing us to look into the future. As boards, a lot of times we're saying, what's a meaningful way that we can bring our community in to be part of this work? And one of the most meaningful ways is strategic planning. We're essentially kind of giving you the keys to the car and saying, okay, help us drive forward in the next 5 years. What does that look like? You're going to be part of determining what that looks like. And then, saying then once we've kind of got this plan, we now kind of have a baseline to work from. So having said that, like I said, it is a series of 3 meetings that we are, all stakeholders are welcome. It will be open to, staff, to parents, to community members, to board members, to students, whoever, community partners. We want to have everyone represented, and then, like I said, we'll be able to have these small group conversations with mixed voices sitting around the table. So we're strategic planning, we say, kind of essentially answers 3 questions, with the first one saying, where are we now? So that's going to be the focus of the first meeting. So the way that we determine that where are we now is that we are going to kind of more look at strengths and challenges, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail here in just a minute. And then the second meeting will be, okay, if we know where we are now, then in the second meeting, we're going to look to the future and say, okay, where do we want to be 5 years from now? And then for the third meeting, if we know where we are now, we know where we want to be 5 years from now, what's that roadmap? How are we going to get there? So we've already got dates set aside for these 3 meetings, November 7th, November 29th, and December 13th. And this process is set up that we want to have as much participation as possible. So while it would be great if people can come to all 3 meetings, if your schedule only allows you to come to meeting 2 or come to meeting 3, that's fine. What we will do is pick up the results after each meeting, all of the small group work, and then it'll be posted on the district's website so that everyone then has the opportunity to see all of the work from the previous meetings so that you can come to whatever meeting or, series of meetings you are able to and be well prepared to participate. So kind of having said that, we kind of walk through a pyramid or walk through that process. Like I said, that first meeting is where are we now? And it kind of happens with 3 different parts to it, of the superintendent administration giving us a brief kind of state of the district. And really we want to just make sure that you're given enough information. We might look at demographics, you might have a brief overview of these test scores, maybe super weak, just kind of a brief, where are we? Not to the point that it is swaying any of the participants one way or the other, but giving you enough information so that when you go into your small groups, you can have informed conversations. You can say, well, remember we heard this just a few minutes ago, and then can expound on that. But importantly, that only needs to be part of the conversation. The other part of the conversation then is, what do you think? So we are giving you some information to have an informed conversation, but then we want to know, what do you think are the strengths of the school district? What do we do well? And then what are some challenges or opportunities? So that, again, we all then will have that common understanding of where we think the district is now. Then we'll move up the pyramid, and in the second meeting then we'll talk about that vision for the next 5 years. And then that third meeting is the kind of that roadmap where we're developing the goal statements. So essentially the first 2 meetings we're gathering data, that data of where do we think we are now and where do we think we want to go. And then that data is going to drive what the goal statements look like. So if we think about the fact that this is completely a ground-up plan, we're not starting with anything, we're not starting with any preconceived ideas or thoughts, it's going to grow based on the data that we receive from the participants. So then that kind of is our lane of where we're working in determining the what. What is the direction that the school district needs to go in the next 5 years? What are those big ideas? What are those goals? And then the very last piece of this to complete the plan would be the how, the action plans. So that will be the work of the staff. So we will tell them what it is we would like the plan to encompass, and then they will take the steps and say, okay, I am going to figure out the how to the what that you have helped us determine. So again, making sure that, like I say, that we are playing an important role here in helping determine that what. So from the board's perspective, what's your role? So again, it was important that the board was, had to approve engaging into this process, that once the plan is done, the board needs to formally adopt the plan so that it's clear to everyone that this is the plan that's going to drive moving the district forward, and then make sure that there are the resources provided for to achieve the goals, recognizing that this is a 5-year thing. As we're writing out some of the action steps, it'll be recognized. Some things we may be able to do right away, some things we may have to budget for in order to accomplish them. In terms of the board participating, usually, board members, we encourage and welcome board members to come. Usually we can't have, or don't have a quorum at the meetings, just so you may have to decide among yourselves if there's an interest in everyone of splitting up who can come to what meetings. Typically the meeting starts with the board president offering a greeting to everyone. And then, like I said, it's we really welcome having board members there. But again, we're kind of wearing that hat of, this is your chance to hear from everyone else. You have your opportunities at your board meetings to voice your opinions, So you're here as a participant, but recognizing that we're more listeners than we are almost anything else. And then, making sure then that, a lot of times community members will say, okay, it's great you brought me in, it's great we put this plan together, but then now what? Like, how am I gonna know that this is actually being utilized? How am I going to know that this is what's carrying out the work of the district? So we know as board members then that every year we set annual district goals. So now that we have a strategic plan, this is where those annual goals are going to start from. That we're going to say, okay, if we have this 5-year plan, what do we need to get done in year 1? What does our focus need to be? What are our priorities need to be? And we now have the input of our stakeholders to help drive and determine those priorities. So as I said, this is important that we try and involve as much as our community as possible. So, just kind of wanted to get the juices flowing and thinking, okay, who can that be? We suggest that you just put out a blanket invitation to everyone, like inviting the school community. But there also, it's also suggested that there may be some specific organizations or groups or representatives in town that you want to reach out to them specifically. I've been in somewhere like the police chief is there, the fire chief, or the town council, or people from the library, or just different organizations in town to include them, or make sure that they have a special invitation, so that we are getting the word out there. Because we want to have as many people as we can, right? So your mission statement, this talks about what you do, how you do, who you do it for, so that will always drive our work. So at every single meeting, in all of the agendas, it will always have your mission statement on it to make sure then that the work that we are doing is helping support and move that mission statement. So okay, here we are, we're at meeting 1, so we'll start out, let's say, I'm just gonna throw a number of, let's say we have 50 people that show up that night. And it could, like I said, ideally it's all different mixed stakeholders. We would start out initially, like I said, hearing that state of the district report, so we would all be together kind of at a group like, like this, listening. And then New Jersey School Boards, and then I will be there to kind of explain this same type thing a little bit of what is strategic planning, what's your task for tonight. And then everyone will be in small groups then, like small tables of say 8, usually about 8 people or so, and it will be a mixed group of stakeholders, and then we'll say, okay group, most of what this process is about the work that takes place in the small groups, and you having your conversations at the table with other people. So saying, okay group, have at it now, sit there and have a conversation, and we're going to give you, say, 45 minutes, 50 minutes to talk about what you think as a group the top 10 strengths are of the district and what your group thinks the top 10 challenges are. And then we're all going to come back together again, and each group will report out on what their group's findings were. Usually we'll hear a lot of similarity in things, but they, and also the unique perspectives as well. So, and sometimes it's a learning curve for us too of, for those of us that, like sometimes perceptions of things that the public or other people will tell us that we hadn't even thought about before. So that's kind of, what makes it great to bring different voices into the process. So this is I just kind of took some examples of other ones of just saying, okay, that this is what that list might look like. So just kind of want to give you samples of what the work could be. So let's say we had, say, in that, say, group of 50 people, let's say we had 6 groups. So you would have 6, each group would have a list like this then, that, that their group would develop of what that group thinks the top 10 strengths and the top 10 challenges are. Okay, so then we would come then to our second meeting, and the second meeting is more about visioning, and we find that it's a little more difficult. Strengths and challenges are pretty concrete. When we talk about visioning, what if we say it's 5 years from now, it's the year 2028, and all of a sudden, you know, we find that your district has won an award as like the top performing district in New Jersey for advancing student achievement. And say, you know, what does the learning look like? What do our students need to do? What do our buildings look like? What kind of technology are we using? Like, want you to really start thinking about what are those things you want for your students, and don't be limited by, you know, kind of those things that might restrict your thinking. This is your chance to really come up with really what it is that you want for your students to be able to know and do. So like here was an example, again, of, you know, we said you were gonna come up with a speech, so we asked everyone to give a title to their speech, and then just kind of some of those things of what the future could look like, or things that you might want for your students. So again, everyone will be in their small groups, having those conversations about, you know, what that could look like. So then, like I said, so then we have now talked about where we are, talked about where we want to go. So now we have strengths, we have challenges, we have visions. So what then now we have to do is, instead of like looking at the strengths, the challenges, and visions of what did table number 1 say, what did table number 2 say, what did table number 3 say, now we're kind of going to say, okay, if we had to put all the strengths, the challenges, and the visions in, say, 4 buckets, what would those 4 buckets be? So like some of the, you know, kind of common buckets we might see are like, say, maybe saying student success, staff success, kind of community partnerships or, you know, community outreach, maybe looking at our operations, our finance and facility. So whatever the strengths, the challenges, the visions we come up with, those will kind of be then our goal areas, are the buckets. So then when you come back for meeting 3, I will have resorted all the strengths, the challenges, and the visions by those goal areas. So then that's the information that you'll use to work with in developing that roadmap or in developing those goal statements. So if we think about a goal statement as just a big, broad statement, but in order for the administration to really be able to write some action plans, we need to give them a little more context. So in addition to just that big, broad statement, we're going to break it down into a little bit of kind of like smaller goals, or like home objectives, to kind of, this is what we mean by this goal statement, so that we're giving you a little bit more guidance in writing that action plan. So like again, here's an example. In this case, the goal area was kind of a combined one of facilities and finance / safety and security. These were some of the visions, the strengths, the challenges that this group, so here's a group of people sitting in their small group. This is, you know, some of the information they had to work with. So then the group took that information then and developed a goal statement, that big, broad statement that said, create a safe and secure learning environment equipped to deliver 21st century programs. Okay, great, here's a nice, big, broad goal statement. But now we need to give the administration a little more context and say, okay, let's break that down a little bit more. So some of the objectives would be to upgrade the facilities to be more energy and cost efficient, increase internal and external security, and upgrade existing facilities to be more structurally modernized. So now we can see then how you can take that big, broad goal statement and how you can develop an action plan, how you can develop some steps to help carry that out. New Jersey school boards will come and deliver the plan to everyone, so we will invite everyone who has participated in the plan to come back that night. I just did it in Lincoln Park not that long ago, and a whole bunch of people came back, so it was really exciting to be able to present the plan with everybody there. And then this is just kind of a template. You know, your administration can use whatever template they want. But when I talk about action plans, just to give you an idea of saying, how are we going to break this goal statement and objectives down? What are the steps that we need to take to accomplish them? Who's going to do it? What are the resources we need? What's the timeline? Some things we can do now, like I said, some things we have to budget, some things we maybe have to do this first before we can do that. And then importantly, what are the indicators of success? How will we all know whether we've accomplished these things or not? So you can then now see how we kind of all work together to put a plan together to help. Oops. No, I guess that must be the last, is that the last slide? Is that why there's nothing happening? Okay. So just, again, wanted to just talk about the importance of everybody coming together and seeing how everybody coming together can help put a plan together that can really be meaningful to help move the school district forward. So I wanted to see if any of the board members had any questions for me. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing everyone for the first night here.
So, any questions or process?
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Given that the length of the plan can outlive certainly board members and staff and whatnot, what are some common, what have you seen, what successful things have you seen happen in other districts to allow the plan to continue on as board members change, staff changes, administrative changes, et cetera?
So, we pretty much say that it needs to be a living, breathing plan, that it can't be a static plan. So it lives on by not letting it stay stagnant and looking at it, like we say, ideally every year, like kind of bring everybody back and say, this is what we accomplished last year, this is where we thought we were going, but now we need to tweak it a little bit here based on where we are now. So continue to make this be a living, breathing plan so that, like, as you say, it shouldn't get outlived by the people. The plan should continue to grow with the people and the changes.
So is it something that we should be revisiting every year as, like, this is our 5-year plan, and this year they'll just extend an extra year, and something that we should?
Yeah, so a lot of times
Maybe
you'll go
best
through and say,
practice.
these are the things we accomplished, these are the things that are pending, these are the things we still have yet to go. This is where we thought we were going, but now we know we've got to change it to this instead. So just kind of, like you said, it needs to be a living, breathing plan.
I had a question about quorum. So it's a publicly advertised meeting, or how many board members?
So it's not a publicly advertised board meeting yet. I
It's
mean,
5, you can't have 5 people in a room, otherwise you have to advertise it. So she's saying divide up the meetings by 4 people.
If we advertise it, can we?
I mean, you can, but once you have a public board meeting, you have to go through everything of public comments, and so it kind of changes the structure of the context.
So you've probably seen these, you've done many of these, right, actually,
Yes,
obviously.
I know.
So you've seen them, probably some better than others. What are some things we can do, right, that help? You've seen the ones that worked out really well. Is there anything that we can help with?
No, I think it's just, I think it helps just by doing it and bringing the voices together and really, doing the outreach to make sure that we are getting as many people and as many different voices as possible to make sure that the plan truly is representative of what your community wants. And then, like I said, and then just taking it and working with it and, like I said, letting it drive when we have the conversation next year about district goals, letting it drive those goals and using it to help guide that work.
Would you be able to furnish us a completed 5-year plan and what was the intervention and what was done and what was successful?
And you can look, a lot of districts have them, like Mountain Lakes is on their website. I mean, so you can see what the plan looks like, you can see what their action plan looks like. And then I can also show you examples of other districts as well.
Would we be able to, I'm sure when we start to advertise, people will be like, well, what exactly is this strategic planning process? And I appreciate the presentation, so clear, and it's very helpful. So would we be able to have a link to the presentation, this presentation, that we could share, like in our materials? Put it on our website?
You are welcome to do that, yep.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, thank you very, very much, as always. I don't know how you do it, but thank you very, very much for your support. may I have a motion for board business motions 1 and 2? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? If not, the questions on the adoption of board business motions 1 and 2, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed say no. Any abstentions? And that brings us to administrative reports, starting with the business administrator, board secretary report, Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Brander. A couple of items, just an update on the roof project. The roof replacement on the area that was worked on towards the end of the summer and still into the school year is substantially complete. I met with the architects, I met with the contractor. I'm very pleased with the work that they did. They're outstanding contractors. I've been on bad roofing jobs, and this was an excellent one. All the leaks have been stopped in this area. We're still dealing with some of the other problem areas and we're developing a plan for moving towards the future with those. Due to the recent drop in temperatures, we started the boilers up, which is a good thing. We haven't developed any leaks, which generally, when it's been dormant for that long, you develop something. They've been running fine, haven't had any other issues. And in October, I've talked about this in the past, the October snapshot, the October 15th date, which is the 14th, which is the Friday. Those are the dates you look at for student enrollment. And that drives your application for state school aid, it drives your district report of transported resident students, and that's what our state aid is based on. So that snapshot is coming up. The reports are due in November and December. We're on track to do that. We're gathering all the data. So October's a very busy time, administratively, teachers, and students as well. That's all I have to report.
Great, thank you. And that brings us to the superintendent's report, Dr. Angelillo.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Just a couple of things to report this evening. Just be mindful that tomorrow, again, is early dismissal for parent-teacher conferences, so students will be dismissed early. Parent conferences tomorrow are the evening conferences from 5 to 8 p.m. And New Jersey School Board's convention is next week. Mr. Murray and I will be attending that along with Mr. Brander. That concludes my report.
Thank you. And you've all had a chance to read the other reports that are listed, and that brings us to accommodations. Back to Dr. Angelillo.
Commendations this evening. Congratulations to the following student council officers on their recent elections. Sam Bruderly, President, Lila Wills, Vice President, Abigail Grace Polinsky, Secretary, and Jalen Lovett, Treasurer. Thank you to our service squad students for helping with lunch with our youngest students to start the school year. Their help getting students seated, helping them open and get started on their lunches makes for an enjoyable lunch period and a very smooth transition. Many thanks to Shira Giratano, our school social worker, Gabby Brown, our school psychologist, and Kelsey Mirabella, our school counselor, for training they presented to our faculty recently about suicide awareness and prevention. Spotlight on student work, which was formerly our Wall of Fame students for September in preschool, Riley Smith and Hannah Wyka. In kindergarten, Lanny Key, Yara Polito, Justin Swyan, and Lily Topkis. In first grade, Mirabelle Azanari, Dakota Ray Egger, Juliet Ellers, and Cameron Gossman. In second grade, Ella Biermeister, Charlotte Lang, Miles Lawrence, Asher Matthews, Stone Papa, and Via Vanderstraten. In third grade, Zach Guzman, Colton Harris, Sashi Patty, and Declan Velasquez. To our Falcons of the Month for September in fifth grade, Skylar Burns. In sixth grade, Austin Traeger. In seventh grade, Regina Brandner. And in eighth grade, Anthony Manella. And to our star students in September 6th, in third grade, Kendall Hulse. In fifth grade, Skylar Burns and Sophia Curran, along with Wiley Lagamano. In seventh grade, Gabby Caswell, Skylar Condi, Bullen Lopez, Braden Long, Megan Pang, Leah Mills, Lila Wills, Evelyn Zanino, and in eighth grade, Genesis Lopez. And those are our commendations.
Great, thank you. One of those names was familiar. Correspondence. And there was none, so that brings us to open session number 1. The first public comment period will be limited to agenda items only. The second public comment period will be open to any topic. Please be mindful that public comment periods are available to enable the public to give comments and feedback to the board. Personal matters and day-to-day operations are not appropriate subjects for board meetings. These can always be most effectively resolved with the appropriate staff members or administrators according to the chain of command concept. Questions may be directed to the appropriate school personnel or board through email. Please state your name and address for the record, and all comments are limited to 5 minutes. Would anyone from the public wish to address the board on agenda items?
Yes.
Ellen Hardy, 24 Split Rock Road. Wanted to start off by saying thank you. I'm really excited about strategic planning and marking those dates on my calendar. I wanted to make some comments about the NJSLA testing this year. Number one, in the presentation, there were no state and district factor comparisons. Without this level of analysis, how can we understand our performance relative to other districts at our level? Number two, there were no Mountain Lakes comparisons. As our kids are going to Mountain Lakes High School, the analysis should include a comparison so we can understand where we outperform and where we have gaps. While we're not the same district factor, it is where our kids are going to high school and we should know if they're prepared. This could and should influence our curriculum, textbook choices, etc. From my own analysis of historical data, which I think most of you should have, we have consistently underperformed versus Mountain Lakes since 2017 in both English and math. Number three, most certainly the pandemic may have had an impact on scores, but we do need to assess how our changes compare to that of other schools with the same district factor. And if there is nothing else that you take away from my comments, please know that our math scores were an issue way before the pandemic. This was obscured by previous presentations which had conflicting information. Both the 2018 and 2019 presentations stated that we were seeing steady increases, and I quote, in math, but the administration's presentation slide actually showed declines by grade and graduating class. Here are copies of the 2018 and 2019 slides with those tagged. Please note that historical CARC and NJSLA test results have been removed from the RBS website, but Dr. Landis said that she is going to reinstate them and put them back on the website so that everyone will have access to these presentations. Other schools have their historical tests all saved on their websites. Number four, test change. In 2019, a standard test changed from PARC to NJSLA. This should have little to no impact. The NJSLA is just a shorter version of the PARC test. If anything, because it's shorter, our scores should have improved. Per the NJEA website, the test questions are the same, and both tests are created by the same company, Pearson. And when we made this change from 2018 to 2019, nobody said that this was an issue. Number five, subgroup analysis. Many other schools, including Mountain Lakes and Kinnelon, provide data by subgroups. For example, children who do not have IEPs. So when we talk about the concern that some of the grades look bad because there are kids who have IEPs who are included in those, that's a simple fix. You can go and look on other schools' presentations and they actually have a subgroup that is children without IEPs so that we can see how we're doing there. And we should also know how we're doing with children with IEPs. So what can we do to address these issues? Like some of the other board members have said, we saw that increasing math from 5 times a week to 8 times a week improved scores markedly. Can we increase to 10 times per week? How do we increase teachable hours? And this weekend, if you did not read the New York Times, there was an amazing article in there that talked about how the schools actually improved their scores despite the pandemic. So I actually put that again in the handout that I gave to you guys because I definitely think that there are things that we can do here to improve math. Given the gap.
That's 1 minute.
Given the gap between our school and Mountain Lakes, what can we do to close that gap? Do we use the same textbooks as them? How many teachable hours do they have of math by grade? What can we learn from their success? And what are the plans for all of the COVID funds? Per the LEA plan that was submitted by our school, the focus seems to be on facility tech and SEL, not academics. Unfortunately, some of our students have already moved on to the high school and didn't get the benefit of these monies. In the 2019 presentation, a comment was made regarding enrichment and support services. What did we do to improve this? And did we see results? Did we see results among our special ed children? I welcome any responses that the administration might have and want to thank the board members who asked questions and had some good conversation about what we can do to improve this. I just ask that there be follow-up to get some of those other questions in greater depth. Get some good answers there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And would anyone else from the public wish to address the board on agenda items at this time? Okay, we'll move on, and thank you again. That brings us to the liaison reports, starting with the Education Foundation.
Okay, so new this, they had a new grant to support the student council for $250 towards their first ever 5th and 6th grade fall fest, supplying pumpkins for each child and decorating items. The 4Kids Fall session is underway with around 150 participants, and the classes are going great with some new additions like yarn, crafting, and having fun with feelings. Two of RBS's new teachers are teaching the class. Final numbers for Denim and Diamonds fundraiser are still in the works, but it was a fantastic night with 125 attendees. It was so nice to see everyone out and about and supporting the foundation. We gave away a 1-carat diamond earring set and a mini iPad, as well as many tricky tray and silent auction items. We thank RBS for the ability to auction off coveted school items like concert seats, graduation seats, and more. If you would like to sponsor the VTEF this year, please reach out for opportunities.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to Home and School Association.
Sure. So the HSA continues to do some good work in helping welcome the new teachers. They provided some gifts to them that were delivered, I think, over the past few weeks, so they were very welcome. There's work underway to provide some assemblies in the cultural arts. I think they're looking at an offer in maybe some dance, performing arts, some good stuff in the works. As upcoming events they have for some ongoing fundraising, Trunk or Treat, just for in town, is set for the 21st. There's the book fair, from the the Trunk or Treat is this Friday. The book fair is October 24th to the 27th. They're looking to sponsor the 7th and 8th grade dance, which is on October 28th.
Okay, thank you. And Morris County School Boards Association, Grace.
The last Morris County School Boards Association meeting was held about 3 weeks ago, the end of September. We recently received some materials from that meeting agenda, and I have uploaded those materials into a shared drive labeled Morris County School Board Association, saved it by date. Specifically, we received presentations on the legislative update, and then the program highlight, which was taking on tough topics as a Board of Education. And that was really very informative about some best practices. So I really encourage my fellow board members to take a look at those 2 presentations. And then the next meeting is being held on November 3rd. It's, I believe, another hybrid meeting, and it's about current legal issues facing school boards. So that promises to be another very good presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. And New Jersey School Boards Association.
The delegate assembly is next month. I won't be able to attend, so I don't know if somebody else can make it.
We have to
Do you have the
officially-
date?
I sent it to Barry, I'm not sure.
Well, it's usually a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken.
It's Saturday morning.
I just have to remember if we have to delegate, if someone goes in Charlie's place, since we vote on our delegate, we have to vote on that person.
See if you have any.
An alternate for that, yeah.
It's the 19th.
Our next meeting is.
So Mrs. Bardock is the old.
Darn.
Yeah.
You weren't here that meeting.
Should have been that. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember, like, for voting purposes, I don't know if you have to do something extraordinary or not. You know,
Somebody needs to sign up by the 1st, I think, of
Okay.
November,
Okay,
in order to get the agenda, get their name in.
yep. Okay, thank you. And Township Committee, Christine.
Yes, as Chris had mentioned, the trunk or treat is this Friday at the RDA Fields, 10:21. The rabies vaccine clinic has been canceled due to a scheduling conflict with a veterinarian. Residents may use any rabies clinic in any other municipality. Check the township website or the Morris County website, which is morriscountynj.gov, residents, public safety rabies clinics. Or the township's weekly newsletter for locations of rabies clinics in November and December. Early voting begins on Saturday, October 29th through Sunday, November 6th, which is, election day is Tuesday, November 8th. Any Morris County voter may vote at the Boonton Township Municipal Building Public Meeting Room Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. till 8 p.m. and Sundays from 10 to 6. The Donnie Farrell Memorial Food Drive will be held on Saturday, this Saturday, October 22nd, from 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. at the RDA Fields. And that is all.
Great, thank you. And that brings us to Mountain Lakes. Jonathan?
Good evening, everyone. A few presentations over at the high school since we last met. This year's senior class has 23 National Merit Scholars, which several of whom were RBS graduates. And I was informed anecdotally that 23 is a huge number relative to other schools our size. New Jersey, incidentally, has more National Merit semifinalists than any other state in the nation, including multiple from Mountain Lakes High School. Lots of updates about the transition to Genesis. Nothing really new there. There are superintendent coffee talks continue. There was actually one this morning. The next one is December 13th at noon. There's a new auditorium at the high school, and a group called the Friends of the Arts, which does the fundraising for the arts at the high school, is interested in doing fundraising and specifically raising money by purchasing plaques that can go on the seats. So this is a situation where you'll be able to put your name or anything you want, a nice message on a plaque, and have it be on a seat at the high school for hopefully a long time. And the group wants to use that money for a portable acoustic shell, which I'm informed will allow them to rent out that space to even more groups in the future. Lots of other updates about facilities and whatnot, nothing really too pressing there. I was asked to remind everyone that if you want, you can become a member of the Mountain Lakes HSA Association. And there's also, their education foundation is having a tennis social on October 29th, 11 a.m. at Park Lakes. So if you want to participate and donate to them and play tennis, there's your opportunity to do so. And then finally, the junior Miss McBride, who was here earlier, stole a lot of my thunder when it came to the Laker shout-out. So I'm going to see if I had anything left that she did not mention. They just had School Violence Awareness Week, and the student assistance counselor began each day by sharing facts and tips related to things like school safety, dating violence, and bullying. So that was well received from what I understand. You got the field hockey news, you got the Quiz Bowl update already. There was a PAC meeting there represented by multiple Boonton Township parents. I think our own board member, Chris Cabana, was there, so sorry to publicly out you, but.
No, that was good. I think we get a lot of good information at that, we really do.
Yeah, so thank you for being there. And tons of colleges and universities visit every day. There are 3 to 6 colleges and universities going to the high school directly, so it's really a wonderful opportunity for the students to meet with representatives from all types of colleges and universities from all over the country. This was probably the neatest thing I learned about in the last couple of weeks. The Mountain Lakes High School Lake Drive students are participating in the Deaf Academic Bowl in person. The team will be traveling to the Kentucky School for the Deaf Academic Bowl in March in order to compete. And they are fundraising to cover the costs of travel, so they are hosting a Dine and Donate October 20th, 21st, and 22nd at Birdie's Hot Chicken in Parsippany, so that is this week. If you're in the mood for some hot chicken, and you go there, some of it will support the team going to compete in the Deaf Academic Bowl, which I thought was pretty neat. That concludes my report.
Thank you. And that brings us to Educational Services Commission. Their meeting was last Wednesday, but I have nothing to report other than they conducted routine business there. And lastly, we have the Boonton Township Green Team. Jeff.
Just a quick update. So we continue to meet Fridays at Town Hall from 3 to 4. I have to shout out Dee, because she did all the research on this. But the community is still looking for just general, or the team is looking for community members to join in and help. We did a lot of research on getting, the town used to have a Sustainable New Jersey certification, which is actually pretty cool, that we lost somehow because we weren't doing these things. But it's like a point system, and there's different categories of things that the town can do for like green initiatives. So things like, I just wrote all that, but like animals in the community, natural resource use, energy use, food in the community, so like food pantries, farmers markets, health and wellness, waste management. So like if we do things like this as a town, we get certified as Sustainable New Jersey. So it's actually kind of cool, but the green team is definitely looking for like community members to come and help do that. Because it's a lot of work and there's a lot of things to plan for and run if we want to do that. And I think it's actually a cool certification for the town. Similarly, there is also a certification for the school that the school used to have before as well. And the green team is exploring how it may partner with the schools and actually try to get that back sometime in the future. So small plug again. Meetings are the first Friday every month, 3 to 4 at Town Hall. So that's it.
You know, one thought with that, with the green team is, you mentioned native plants or something. I mean, I'm sure the thought's been out there already, but tapping into the garden club or someone belonging to the garden club or inviting them or having them help with that portion might be an avenue.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to finance motions 1 through 8. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Is there a second? Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? If not, the question. So I'll head over the program. If not, the questions on the adoption of finance motions 1 through 8, and this looks like all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That brings us next to personnel motions 1 through 6. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, or discussion?
Just a quick shout out and thank you to the new substitutes, Catherine Shannon, Jessica Curran, and Marlene Grant, because I know we're woefully short on substitutes, so thank you.
Thank you. A very good shout out. Any other questions, comments, or discussion? If not, the questions on the adoption of personnel motions 1 through 6. This is a roll call.
Mrs. Barner?
Yes.
Mr. Brandon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cabana?
Yes.
Mr. Chen? Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hermy?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. LeVar?
Yes.
And Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That brings us to program motions 1 and 2. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who was that? Raise your hand.
Florence.
That was a tie. I don't know how you would break that tie.
Take your faith.
Mr. Murray will have to clear that. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? If not, the questions on the adoption of program motions 1 and 2. This is an all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That brings us to a first reading of policy 5131.1. There's a lot of things here. Let's see if I can.
Barry, I sent an email,
Yes.
right? So I wrote
Yeah.
about that and
Yeah.
I tried to,
Let's see if I can do this briefly for all of you. Okay. Get my bearings.
you know what, there was 3 main takeaways. Do I make it easy? If I can recollect them. The first one was, there's different levels now for violations, first, second, like for the different offenses, there's different,
There is progressive discipline and education for an individual who is a repeat offender.
The other one, I believe, was with cyber harassment, and that there could be implications for the parents as well as the child. I believe this happens at home or whatever, under their watch kind of thing. And then the last thing was, oh yeah, the state has now standardized the forms that the districts have to fill out, so that it's not each district having their own forms. They're forms that are put out by the state, they're kept on record by the state, so things kind of now, the way I understand it, will follow students too.
Okay. And if anyone has the existing policy, the changes would be on, if you look on our existing policy, the changes would take place on pages 2, 5, 6, 7, and 15.
Can I just, following the student, if they go to another public school in New Jersey or all the way to higher education, college and beyond?
I do not, I believe it ends with high school.
Okay.
And also to clarify, we're modifying our existing policy, which was consistent with the New Jersey School Board's recommended policy, and the new policy is also consistent with the New Jersey School Board's Association sample policy. What has happened is the state has implemented new laws, regulations, etc. And whenever they do that, the School Boards Association will come out with a policy to be consistent with that, so our policies are updated. So our policy that was before and after are both consistent with the New Jersey School Boards Association recommended policies. I agree, chapter and verse, but it may get cumbersome. But if you go to pages 2, 5, 6, 7, and 15, you'll find where those changes are happening. And with that, I have a policy motion number 1. May I have a motion, please, for policies that we had a first reading for last meeting?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? If not, questions on the adoption of policy motion number 1, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed say no. Any abstentions? And that brings us to open session number 2. The second public comment period will be open to any topic. Please be mindful that public comment periods are available to enable the public to give comments and feedback to the board. Personal matters and day-to-day operations are not appropriate subjects for board meetings. These can always be most effectively resolved with the appropriate staff members or administrators according to the chain of command concept. Questions may be directed to the appropriate school personnel or board through email. Please state your name and address for the record, and all comments are limited to 5 minutes. Would anyone from the public wish to address the board on any matter? Yes.
Marta Pasquarella, 12 Dogwood Lane. I actually have 2 questions. My first question is, well, years ago, we used to have a February break because of like flu, and it came actually from the public health to have a break to give it a chance for the school to kind of reboot. Based on the fact with, the COVID issues and all kinds of stuff, has there been any thought, has there been any discussion or consideration of revisiting that type of break in the future? I mean, because I know we drifted away from the full week and now it's just like a couple days or whatever.
Yes.
So I'm just curious with the health issues that are being faced, has anybody brought that up?
Yeah, I guess to give a history, the first time we went away from the 1 week was a couple of years ago when Mountain Lakes was going through some.
Right, I know, you're kind of based on what the high school, so I guess I'm saying, is there anything filtering back
Yeah, we
from
condensed
there?
the schedules back then, so that it eliminated the breaks, and that went for 2 years. And then as we moved away from that phase, we still try to be consistent with Mountain Lakes as best we can. And at this time, we work together with them so that our students aren't
No, I understand.
off. So
I'm
just
just asking, has
yeah.
anything come from them even with that thought process? And then I guess if, I don't know, it's just my own little 2 cents as a grandmother with grandkids and wanting to do some type of vacation or whatever, is there any thought to kind of not have it in February, but maybe in March, so you kind of get the benefit of both kinds of season if you do stuff with families. And I know the high school's gonna tell you, oh, we have spring sports, we got all this, because been there, done that. But I mean, is there a thought process to be, I don't know if there's even any interest in that, so I'm not saying, this is just a personal thing, so I don't know, and I guess I'm kind of feeling out, is there?
I can tell you every year, we think about it a lot. And between the two districts and also the administrators, and it's usually our best.
I know, we're the stepchild when it comes to the calendar.
We do the best we can.
Okay. The next question I have for you, is there, do you do any callbacks, or do you ever talk with our students at the end of their freshman year in high school and just say, hey, how did you feel after this first year? Did you feel like you were prepared? I mean, test scores, I get what test scores are, but sometimes just a personal feedback goes a long way. Do we do that?
Is this something you like to?
Yeah, the only thing that I can tell you, Ms. Pasquarella, is one of the things that we have done and we're doing through our counselors now is reaching out to alum and bring them back at the end of the year for
Yeah, that's what I'm
alumni day.
referring to.
And we don't, it's not as though we reach out to all of them, but we ask the high school principal and the administration there to identify some students that would come back, speak to us, and speak to our 8th graders as a way of indoctrinating them and orienting them to freshman year.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public wish to address the board on any matter?
Eileen Brandner, 9 Maple Drive. I'm here to update the board on CPAG. CPAG is Special Education Parent Advisory Group. On September 28th, the RVS Child Study Team held a workshop called Navigating Special Education at Rockaway Valley School. It was well attended, gave a detailed overview of the special education program here at RVS, and allowed for amazing parent participation all evening. Mrs. Voorhees suggested some great future presentations, including the possibility of hosting one on special ed law. Our first regular CPAG parent meeting was held last night. We welcomed old faces and new at our kickoff meet and greet and parent listening session. A parent listening night is where CPAG collects and provides direct input on current policies, programs, and practices to district leadership. The next meeting with RVS administration will be on October 25th. Our next monthly parent meeting will take place on November 15th from 7:30 to 9 at the Rockaway Valley United Methodist Church downstairs. Babysitting is provided, and all parents or guardians with a student with disabilities are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brandner. Would anyone else from the public wish to address the board on any matter? My agenda's gone. That brings us to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board?
Just a quick follow-up regarding the strategic planning meeting. Is there anyone in the community has suggested that we want to specially invite, and if so, we want to make that invitation? Maybe we're a small enough community where everyone's going to get the email, but maybe we want to ask like the township newsletter to include it, or any thoughts?
Mr. LeVar, I already reached out to Mr. Cabana, the township administrator, speaking about it so that they could put it in their newsletter. I've actually reached out to the mayor, myself, and the chief of police just to inform them that this could potentially be coming down the pipe. And then once we had Mrs. Peterson's presentation, that we would begin to more formally push.
Thank you. Short of the fire department, I think that's every organization in town.
Garden Club, and the Historical Society.
Or historical, yes.
And then staff, like all of our, staff.
Yes, we got it covered. Thank you. Any other old business to come before the board? Is there any new business to come before the board?
I wanted to propose having a CPAG board liaison, and just kind of getting people's opinions and feedback about, since we have representation from HSA and all different organizations that represent the school, and our liaisons with us and administration, I think would be beneficial, excuse me.
Would CPAG be open to that?
Sure. Spotlight on you.
Right, something that- Thank you.
So is that a position that we would be, how would that come to the
Good question.
At the reorg?
Yeah.
Mrs. Barnett volunteering on
Sounds like.
So something to bring up at the reorg meeting?
Yes, so October, we have 2 more meetings, and then we're in January when we appoint all of our liaisons, so yes. Something to consider, thank you. Okay, thank you. Is there any other new business that can be put forward? Okay, if not, we do have a matter to go into closed session for. May I have a motion to enter into executive session? To discuss, fortunately, I have to do this. Anyway, for the record, may I have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss issues that warrant confidentiality as permitted in the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 31 of the laws of 1975. These matters may or may not be made public when the board reconvenes. They will be made public when the confidentiality of the subject is no longer warranted. Our subject is the Boonton Township Mountain Lakes Agreement. There will be no other board action taken when we return other than adjourning. May I have that motion? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll go into closed session, and otherwise, we're going to reconvene to adjourn the meeting later. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. We've just had a motion to reconvene from our executive session. At this time, there is no other board action, and may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming, and see you at the next meeting. Thank you.